So good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. It's Saturday afternoon still. I put a video up about this final drive and having to put a helicoil in there a little bit earlier, and that got me thinking while I was fiddling around cleaning it up and doing stuff. And you know, I said how much it cost the guy. Well, that might sound like a lot of money, but it's an hour and a half later and I'm just about got it ready to go back together now. So I thought I'd just sort of take a minute and show you a few things. When these go together, especially after the factory, you're meant to put some red Loctite on these threads in this little nut that is one of the tensioning nuts for the pinion. The big pinion bearing that lives in there, you can see it there on the shaft. It's a massive thing and it's a very expensive gadget to fix or replace. So to get to the point where we could put that helicoil in, we had to take a whole lot of things apart. One of them was the seal ring. This seal here goes into that seal ring. It fits down in there. It's reversed actually. It goes in backwards so that the lips are pointing out that way. And that's because it's meant to hold the oil in the drive shaft, stop it from running into the diff. The oil gets kind of screwed up along the drive shaft up to the universal joint and lubricates the joint. And that's why if people keep the oil up in the drive shaft and change it regularly, the universal joints will last almost forever if you do that, as will sliding splines on cush drives and those sorts of things. But anyway, nevertheless, to get that ring out, the first thing you have to do is take this off. And this is inevitably red Loctited on, and as I said, after the factory, when they do it a particular way, you can get anything in there. You can get araldite, you can get green Loctite, you can get red Loctite, you can get stuff that I've never seen before, the likes of brown stuff. Heat will usually kill most of it, and I use for that just a simple map gas gun like this. This one's got a pre-igniter in it, so you just hold that down and away it goes. There are a number of nozzles that we change over on that depending on what we're doing. And then you need something like a plate like this to bolt the final drive up to. Then you need something like this, which is made from an old cut down drive shaft spline to go on there and then lock that radial spherical bearing. But it's not really a radial spherical bearing. What it is, it's a self-aligning spline. I didn't mean to say, I was thinking about something else. That it's a self-aligning spline. See how they're curved? And the idea of the bell spline on the cush drive goes over that, and if it isn't perfectly aligned because the shaft has a universal at the other end, this will accommodate it. Now when it goes on, it's got a coarse spline in it, which you can see through there, and a recess. And into that recess goes this little seal. They've changed the colour of them recently. They used to be kind of a creamy colour, and that fits in there. And then the big washer goes on top of that, and then the nut. They go on last. First of all, you take that off first. You got to heat it to kill whatever's holding it on, and there's no need to put it on every single thread in the thing. I usually put it on the last two threads or three threads, and then torque it to spec and leave it overnight. Never had one come loose ever, so it should be Loctited though. So you've got to get that out. That needs a 24mm socket, and you've got to have some pretty good jaws on the vise, because sometimes to get that undone it takes a wrecker bar and a whole lot of grunting and whatever else have you. You can use a rattle gun on it if you've got a good rattle gun. Not something I recommend unless you know what you're doing though. That's getting it off. So once you get that off, and this spline, this little seal is inevitably gooey, you then find that the rabbit that put it together the last time has managed to get some Loctite down these splines, and the only way you can get that out with a lever is to take the top and bottom drain bolts out and get two levers in there and try and heat that and then prise that off, just for something else to do for the day. And that comes to number one of my special tools, and I have a range of these made from old blade screwdrivers. Just picked up in second-hand shops for a couple of dollars. Some of them are better condition or better quality than others. This is a pretty good one. I've had it for a long time. It's not branded anywhere. and I linished it down, rounded the point, and took the sharp edges off it and the sharp point off it, so I can use it as like a little mini pry bar, or small enough to get down the holes in that final driver. I've got two like that, and then start levering that self-aligning spline off the main input spline in the final drive. Then you have the same issue again when they plaster this with red Loctite, and boy, isn't there some surface area in there when they fill that up. Anyway, again, I use about 2 threads on the outer end and then screw it home and torque it, and I never have an issue with it. That is really more to do with oil leakage than anything else. I use Loctite 515 on those things. I use Loctite 518 or 515 on almost everything. So now we've got the seal holder out. We've got to knock the old seal out. That can be a mission because sometimes they glue them in too. There's the new one. We've already got the new seal in there. Now we've got to clean up the internals of this, which was full of red Loctite. Thankfully only about halfway in. So we cleaned this up on the wire brush. We got it clean on there. That was pretty good. And then I used my patented thread chaser tool to clean those threads out. Now that is just simply an old seal ring with 8 cuts in it, and you can see when they get cut through with a cutting disc, they leave a sharp triangular profile into the threads, so that when they get screwed in, they're a lot gentler than a tap, like they're not cutters. So when you screw it in, if you screw it in gently backwards and forwards, take it out, clean it thoroughly every little while, that will take all the dead Loctite out of those threads for you. And then you have the same situation with this nut, which was absolutely chocked to the ears with red Loctite. So as it happens, that's the same pitch and size as the output thread on an output shaft from a 5-speed gearbox. This is an old one that I took out of a gearbox, and it couldn't be used again because it had spun the bearing on that end so that the bearings would just fall on and off. So we put a new output spline in that, and I use that for actually pushing bearings in and pushing things out in the press, because it's nice and long, and it's once I get it lined up, it actually pulls and pushes things quite nicely for me. Thank you. But you can make a thread chaser out of anything, you know. All you need, if you've got something, is to get a bolt. If you've got a nut that's all buggered up, you can just get a bolt the right size and put 4 cuts in it with a 1mm cutting disc, clean it up on a wheel, stand it up in the vise, and then screw the nut up and down on it with some lubricant, WD-40 or whatever you want. Keep it all clean, keep cleaning the little grooves out, and that will clean up and stand up a couple of lightly damaged threads if you have those as well. So that's where the money goes. The money for fixing this little helicoil, like my helicoil mobile guy charges me $90 to come and put one of those in, which he doesn't anymore because I overcame my dislike of doing it, and now I just do it because that's silly for me to pay that out and then have to sort of wait for him to turn up when I've got all the gear. But say $90, and then you got the time that you take to get all this to come out for a start, kill the Loctite, get it out of the thing. You need a special tool to do that. Castellated driver, I've got 2 of those. One of them's about 4 times as long for the power levers. Then you need the things to clean them, then you've got to put it all back together again. Not worth over tensioning a 17mm bung, is it? Don't forget the pry bars, make yourself some of those. You'll love me to death when you find out just how many things you can use those on around alloy without hurting anything. Take care. Stay well until we meet again.